Our daily Bible reading for February 2nd. Our reading today comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18. We'll be reading verses 15 through 35. Matthew, chapter 18. If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault, between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly, I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again, I say to you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among them. Then Peter came up and said to him, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you 7 times, but 77 times. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold, with his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, Have patience with me, and I will pay you everything. And out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him, and forgave him the debt. When that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, Pay what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, Have patience with me, and I will pay you. He refused, and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should you not have had mercy on your fellow servant, as I had mercy on you? And in anger his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you, if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. A few thoughts for today. Peter's question of how often I should forgive my brother comes on the heels of Jesus' instructions on how to deal with someone to whom an offense has occurred. If your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. If he listens to you, you have won your brother. Verse 15. Was Peter's attitude one of, now, let me get this straight? Or was it, should we exceed what we've been taught? Tradition tells us that the Jews had developed a system of forgiveness that had been passed down and refined from the time of Amos. For in the prophecy of Amos, he says, Thus the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Israel, and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment, because they sell the righteous for money and the needy for a pair of sandals. Amos chapter 2 and verse 6. If Peter was asking on behalf of tradition, he was being generous indeed, more than twice what the teachers of the law taught. For they said, in essence, 3 strikes, you're out, to use a modern comparison. Now, Jesus goes well beyond that by saying not just 7 times, but 77 times. In reality, our forgiveness knows no bounds nor limits. If our forgiveness reaches an end, so does God's, and vice versa. In what we know of as the Lord's Prayer, we find the statement, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 12. In perhaps one of the most sobering commands we receive, Jesus puts it bluntly, our responsibility to forgive. Mark 11:26 tells us, But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father who is in heaven forgive your transgressions. As Jesus proceeds to use a parable to show the principle behind forgiving others, he closes with another statement that leaves little doubt our responsibility in forgiving others. So shall my heavenly Father also do to you, if each of you does not forgive his brother from his heart. Verse 35. Not just in word only, but from the heart. In this, God will know the truth of what we confess, lest we think that it was an easier task then as now. Notice in one instance when Jesus spoke of how many times to forgive our brother. Perhaps our prayer ought to be, Lord, increase our faith. Luke 17:5. A question of the day. Have you had trouble forgiving others in your life, especially those closest to you? And finally, a thought to meditate on this day. Think about the connection between your relationship to others whom you find difficulty forgiving and how those feelings hold you back. And those are our thoughts for today, February 2nd.